Hello. Thank you for joining me for this evening's meditation and sutra study. I'm Sensei Alex Kakyo, and the title of tonight's talk is Walk Like a Buddha. We'll be reading from the Vimalakirti Sutra, and this will be our last evening with the Vimalakirti before we move on to the Lotus Sutra next week. These teachings are offered free of charge, but if you'd like to make a contribution, PayPal for both information for both PayPal and Cash App are in the description for this talk. And if you'd like to do a deep dive into the practice, check out my book, Perfectly Ordinary Buddhist Teachings for Everyday Life. There's a link to a sample chapter of the book also in the description for this talk. And finally, as a friendly reminder, this is something we do every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if you'd like to take part in the live stream. So we'll begin this evening like we always do with the guided meditation. So I'll give you a moment to get into a position that you feel comfortable in and that you can hold for 15 minutes without moving. I'll keep time, so you don't need to worry about that. And my only rule is that you need to be comfortable. So now that we're sitting nice and tall, back straight, chin tucked ever so slightly. If we want, we may close the eyes for our meditation, limiting distractions. If not, we can just keep them half closed and pointed down at a 45-degree angle. And we're going to start the meditation by breathing. Just a simple in and out through the nose. Engaging the parasympathetic nervous system. Letting our bodies know that we're safe. That we can relax. That we're going to take a little bit of time for ourselves and not do much of anything. On every inhale, we poke out our belly button slightly. Getting a good lungful of air. And on the exhale, we just relax. We're just going to keep going with this breath for a while, focusing on the physical sensations of our stomach moving in and out, the air moving in and out of our nostrils. And if our mind wanders, that's okay. We just say hello to our thoughts and bring our focus back to our breath. We'll do this for about 2 minutes. Great work. Now we'll continue into the visualization portion of our meditation. Continuing the meditative breath we started earlier, we're going to envision a ball of energy just behind our belly button. In Buddhism, this is the hara. It's the seat of our enlightenment. And whatever our favorite color is, that's the color of this energy. If we like blue, it's blue. If we like red, it's red. And we're going to envision it burning like a fire. With every inhale, we blow on that fire and make it bigger, just like we would with the campfire. So we'll do that for about 2 minutes. We're just going to breathe and make our inner fire as big and as bright as we can. If our mind wanders, that's okay. We just say hello to our thoughts and bring our focus back to the breath and to the visualization. Excellent. Now we're going to envision a pipe or a channel of energy going from our hara down to the center of the earth. And once we reach the center of the earth, we'll find an energy source that's identical to the energy in our hara, the space behind our belly button. So if our energy is blue, the earth's energy is blue. If our energy is green, the earth's energy is green. And what we're going to do is with every inhale, we'll pull up some of that earth energy into ourselves, like water moving through a pipe. And with every exhale, we'll blow on that energy like we would a campfire, making it as big and as bright as we can. And as we do this, we notice that even as we take energy from the earth, it's never depleted. It's like the more the earth gives, the more it has to give. And for the next minute or so, we'll just focus on pulling that earth energy into ourselves, bit by bit, breath by breath. Wonderful. Now we'll envision a second energy channel going from our hara up, past our solar plexus, through our throat, right up through the top of our head. So we have our own energy in the middle, in our belly button. We have one energy channel going down to the center of the earth. We have another energy channel going from our hara up through the top of our head. And now what we're going to do is continue pulling energy up from the earth. But now we're going to squeeze it out with every exhale and push it up past our solar plexus, through our throat, through the top of our head, until it erupts like a volcano and just showers us in healing, loving kindness energy from the earth. We breathe in, energy comes from the earth to our hara. We breathe out, energy goes up through the top of our head and showers our entire body with healing energy. And we're just going to do this for about 2 minutes. Just cover ourselves in healing light. Breathing in, breathing out. And if our mind wanders, that's okay. We just say hello to our thoughts and bring our focus back to our breath and to our visualization. Remembering to poke our belly button out on every inhale. Letting our stomach relax on every exhale. Breathing in and out through the nose. As we cover ourselves in healing energy from the earth. We'll do this for about 30 more seconds and then we'll bring our meditation to a close. Wonderful. Now we envision that spout of energy coming from the top of our heads, getting a little smaller and a little smaller with every breath, until eventually it barely reaches the top of our head. Then it gets smaller and it only reaches our throat. And it stops our solar plexus. Until finally, we realize the energy is just staying right where it's always been. In the seat of our enlightenment, our hara, that space behind our belly button. And we gently close that energy channel going to the top of our head. Then we take our focus to the energy channel going down to the center of the earth. And slowly, gently, we close that off as well. Until finally there's nothing but the energy in our belly. And we take notice of it, remembering that it's always there if we need to call on it. But now it's time to do another part of our practice. So we gently lean our head to the left and then the right. Going back and forth, bringing ourselves into our body. And then we come back to center. We roll our shoulders forward. Three times, and then we roll them back, focusing on the physical sensations. Saying thank you to our body for allowing us to engage in this practice. Saying thank you to our cushions or our chairs for supporting us, to the air for filling our lungs, to the Buddha for creating this practice. And if our eyes are closed when we're ready, and only when we're ready, we open our eyes. And I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. And then we'll start the reading for this evening. Wonderful. Thank you for doing that with me. Okay, so we'll start tonight's reading. And just to preface it a little bit, we're still reading from the Vimalakirti Sutra. This is the BDK English Tripitaka translation. And in this particular part of the sutra, Vimalakirti is sitting in his hut, and he is surrounded by an infinite number of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas from various other Pure Lands. And there's a little posturing going on, a little, I'll show you mine if you show me yours, so to speak. So I'll do the reading, and then we'll go into what that means for us and what it meant for Vimalakirti and the Buddha. Okay. Vimalakirti said, "The bodhisattvas of this land are resolute in their compassion for the sentient beings here. Truly, it is as you have said. Thus, in a single lifetime, they benefit more sentient beings than you do in that country, i.e., the host of fragrances world, in 100,000 kalpas of practice. Why? This Saha world has 10 excellent dharmas, i.e., features that are lacking in the other Pure Lands. What are these 10? The poor are attracted by charity. The transgressors are attracted by pure precepts. The angry are attracted by forbearance. The lazy are attracted by exertion. The perturbed are attracted by meditation. The foolish are attracted by wisdom. Those who experience the 8 difficulties are saved by explanation of how to eliminate difficulties. Those who take pleasure in the Hinayana are saved by the teachings of the Mahayana. Those without merit may be saved by the various good roots, and the liberation of sentient beings is constantly being accomplished by means of the 4 attractions. These are the 10. The Bodhisattvas said, how many dharmas do bodhisattvas have to accomplish in their flawless practice in this world to be born in a Pure Land? Vimalakirti said, bodhisattvas accomplish 8 dharmas in their flawless practice in this world, so as to be born in a Pure Land. What are the 8? They benefit sentient beings without seeking recompense. They experience various sufferings in place of all sentient beings. They donate all the merit from their actions to others. In humility and non-interference, they are even-minded toward all sentient beings. They view other bodhisattvas as if they were Buddhas. They hear and do not doubt sutras they have not heard before. They do not become refractory towards sravakas, and they are not jealous of the offerings received by others and do not become haughty over benefit to themselves. In these 8 dharmas, they discipline their minds, always reflecting on their errors and not proclaiming the shortcomings of others, yet always single-mindedly seeking the various merits. These are the 8 dharmas. When Vimalakirti and Manjushri explained this dharma to the great congregation, 100,000 gods and humans all generated the attention to achieve Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, and 10,000 bodhisattvas attained the forbearance of the non-arising of dharmas. So, like I said, there was a bit of posturing going on in this part of the story. Countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas from various Pure Lands are congregating here, visiting Vimalakirti, seeing if he's okay. And you have to remember, Vimalakirti, while he had been a Bodhisattva in a previous life, in this world, in this sutra, he was an ordinary human being. He didn't have miracle powers. And the Buddha, when he walked the earth, did not have miracle powers. So there was a little bit of misunderstanding with the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who used miracle powers to save sentient beings. They used music, they used fragrances, they used smells, and essentially they were saying, we all have superpowers, why don't you? You can imagine the first time Green Lantern or Superman first met Batman and realized he was just a guy in a bat suit. It's like, how can you be one of us? And this is a fun thing that happens when Buddhists meet each other. I call it Buddhist Geography, where we all talk about who we studied with and who we practice with and what retreats we've done. And, well, this is how we do it in Soto Zen. Oh, well, in Pure Land, we do it this way instead. And there's a little bit of competition, but it's also just getting to know people. And that's what they wanted to. They wanted to get to know Vimalakirti. They wanted to know, how did he save sentient beings? And Vimalakirti replied by saying, not only was he able to save sentient beings without miracle powers, but he was actually better at it than they were. And he also goes on to say later in the sutra that the Buddha, even though he has miracle powers, chose not to use them because he realized that being ordinary was a more effective teaching. You'll notice of all the things he listed there, of the ways that Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in this world save sentient beings, he didn't say anything that was too spectacular. They're nice to people. They keep the precepts. They meditate and practice with their Sangha. They aren't jealous of other people when they're successful. But he also said that these were effective practices. Why? Because people are attracted by them. They're attracted by the guy who's able to sit, or woman who's able to sit and meditate on the cushion without moving. They're attracted by the person who is kind and generous, even when they're under a lot of stress or pressure. They're attracted by the individual who's nice to them. And it's through that niceness, through that common human decency, that Vimalakirti and the Buddha were able to save sentient beings from suffering. And this was more effective because it was a practice that anyone could do. That's what Vimalakirti meant when he said that our practice is more effective than yours. Yes, the Tathagata of wonderful fragrances saved many sentient beings through his smells and through his food, but he was the only one who could do that. In his entire land, he was the only one with that ability. What's wonderful about the Dharma and about what's wonderful about Buddhist practice is that anyone can do it. Monk, nun, layperson, young, old, doesn't matter. Anyone can do these things. That's why it's so important that Buddha chose not to use his miracle powers. He was a human being, like we're human beings. He realized enlightenment, thus we can realize enlightenment. There's no tricks. There's no misunderstanding. It's just us following his example so that we can get where he's been. You can think of it in a way sort of like someone who's gone on a long trip and comes back and gives you directions. Maybe you're a little scared and you're a little nervous, but you know you can get there. Why? Because they've been there. Not only have they been there, but they're giving you a map. And that's what our practice is. It's just us using the map that's been given to us by the Buddhas that came before, but then also using our lives so that we can be a map, we can be an example for other people. As I say this, I think about my aunt. When I was growing up, she's not Buddhist, but she's just, like I said, a very kind, decent human being. So kind, in fact, that when things were difficult for me at home, her house was kind of a safe haven. She lived down the street from us, so I'd go there, and she didn't do anything special. She fed me. She plopped me down in front of the TV. If I wanted to complain, let's say I had a bad day at school, she would listen. She just gave me some attention, loved on me a little bit, but that made such a big difference in my life. Not anything that people will write books about. She'll never be on reality TV, but that was life-changing for me. And similarly, you have that same ability. It's the same ability that the Buddha used 2,600 years ago. He gave time and attention to his fellow sentient beings, and in doing so, he made their lives better. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the purpose of our practice is learning to follow his example so that we can do what he did. When we sit like he sat, when we practice meditation, when we talk like he talked by chanting sutras, when we walk as the Buddha walked during walking meditation, and when we pay him homage and respect by prostrating in front of our altars or doing light or water offerings, what we're doing is practicing so that we can then be the Buddha ourselves. We're faking it until we make it. And then after we make it, we go out and we let other people see us making it. We practice generosity in the temple so we can be generous out in the real world. We practice humility and equanimity in the temple so we can be humble and equanimous in the real world. And we don't see all the different ways that affects other sentient beings, but what Vimalakirti is telling us in the sutra is not only does it have an effect, it has a life-changing effect. The most effective way for us to save the world from suffering is simply to set a good example. What we're doing tonight, spending our time practicing and learning the Dharma, is an example of that. Supporting our fellow practitioners. When we're on social media and we congratulate someone who just had a baby, or we say hello to a friend we haven't talked to in a while. Again, that's practicing the Dharma. We're attracting people through our kindness, through our humility. We're teaching them without teaching them. And this is important because in the West, we often think that unless we're talking, we're not saying anything. But what Vimalakirti is saying is that our actions speak much more loudly than our words. Here, I'll read part of the passage again. This Saha world has 10 excellent dharmas, i.e. features, that are lacking in the other Pure Lands. What are these 10? The poor are attracted by charity. The transgressors are attracted by pure precepts. The angry are attracted by forbearance. The lazy are attracted by exertion. The perturbed are attracted by meditation. The foolish are attracted by wisdom. That's it. Charity, pure precepts, forbearance, exertion, meditation, wisdom. That's how Vimalakirti taught the Dharma. That's how Buddha taught the Dharma. That's how all of us teach the Dharma. So really the message of the Vimalakirti Sutra, and the reason I save this passage for the end, is to remind all of you that you are the Buddhas of your own Pure Land, whether you realize it or not. Whether that's your home, whether that's your job, whether that's your school, each of us is Buddha. And each of us has a Pure Land that we are responsible for, that we can make better. And in this Saha world, with all the suffering that's happening, it can be very overwhelming. We can think there's nothing I can do. It's just too much. It's too difficult. But what Vimalakirti is saying is what you're doing is enough. Simply living a life in accordance with the Dharma is enough. It was enough for him. And not only was it enough for him, but again, it's more effective than all the flashy miracle powers we read about. You don't need to be a billionaire. You don't need to have super strength or super speed. You don't need to have a giant home where you can house all the homeless people in the world. All you need to do is be yourself and practice the Dharma. Daily acts of kindness. That's it. If you take care of your home, let's say you clean up, it's suddenly better for everyone who's there. If you show up to work on time, the people who are there who are leaving, their shift is over and they get to leave on time because you showed up on time, you save them from all types of suffering. You don't think of it that way, but what's your life like if someone shows up late? What's your life like if someone leaves dirty dishes in the sink? Is it better or worse? And if it's better, then that's how you know that you're making the world better every time you do that thing. Now, there's a great practice I like to teach people to help remind them of this. It's called Nikon. And it's a mindfulness practice you can do anywhere, anytime. I personally like to do it before I go to sleep at night. And it's very simple. You think of 5 ways that you've helped other people today. It could be something big, like you rescued a cat out of a tree. Or it could be something small, like you tipped your waitress or waiter 20%. Think of 5 things. After that, think of 5 nice things that people have done for you. And again, it could be big or small. It could be someone gave me $100, or it could be someone held the door open for me at the grocery store. So 5 good things you've done for other people, 5 good things they've done for you, and finally, 1 thing that you're going to try to do a little better tomorrow. So maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you didn't wash the dishes tonight like you wanted to. Maybe you were a little short-tempered with a friend. It's fine. We all make mistakes. But we try to do better tomorrow. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're struggling, if you're not feeling like you can do enough or that you have done enough, I recommend that Nikon practice. Again, very simple mindfulness reflection. 5 good things you've done for other people, 5 good things they've done for you, and 1 thing you'll try to do differently tomorrow. So that's the talk for today. I hope it was helpful. Amitabha. And now we'll move into the Q&A portion of the practice this evening. While we're waiting for questions and comments to come in, you can type them in the chat if you have questions about the Vimalakirti Sutra, about tonight's talk, about Buddhism in general, or just comments you want to leave. Just type them in the chat. I'll respond. And while we're waiting for people to do that, I'll make a few announcements. So we do this practice every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's 15 minutes of guided meditation, a sutra reading, a Dharma talk, followed by a Q&A. We also do Dharma Sunday every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. That's just the Dharma talk, followed by a Q&A. The teachings are offered free of charge, but if you'd like to make a contribution, information for that is in the description for this talk. Okay, so Divad Buddha X gave the bow emoji. Thank you, Divad. I appreciate you being here. David Oliver also bowed. Thank you, David. I appreciate you being here. And Allison Griffin did the bow emoji and a blue heart, which is great because blue is my favorite color. Thank you so much, Allison. Wonderful. Thank you for being here. And Divad Buddha X had a comment. People usually believe spirituality is all about supernatural powers, but true spirituality is doing normal daily activities. Some people have trouble sleeping and eating, and having powers won't help. That is an excellent insight, and that's 100% true. I'm thinking about my own practice when I first went into the temple, and I went into what's called dokusan, which is interviews, where you go and speak with the teacher in private. And I had all of these ideas about what was going to happen. This is silly, but I honestly thought that I was going to sit so quietly and so still during the talk that he'd be wowed by my practice, and my teacher would give me some secret teaching that he hadn't given anyone else. Definitely did not happen. I went into my interview. He asked me if I had any questions, how long I'd been training. And then he said, good job, stick with it. And that was it. Good job, stick with it. A very simple teaching, but probably one of the most important I've ever had. But definitely not supernatural powers. So I agree with your statement 100%. Looks like you also went on to say simplicity is key. And that's true. And that can kind of be a double-edged sword with Buddhism. Sometimes these practices are so simple that people don't think they're effective. Which is funny, they're extremely effective because they're so simple. And that's what Vimalakirti was getting at in the sutra, because all these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with their miracle powers were asking, this is so simple. Like, it can't be this easy. Where are your harps? Where are your trees with 7 types of jewels? And he's like, no, we don't need that. Like you said, simplicity is key. So very good insight. Excellent. Frank Ingiosi did the bow emoji and said, thank you, Sensei. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate you being here. Man, I really enjoy practicing with other people. So this is wonderful. Thank you. Alison Gerfen said, Vimalakirti was an outstanding layperson, though. Yes, he was. He was very impressive, and that's why I like this sutra so much. People get this idea that if you're a layperson, if you haven't done a 3-month retreat, if you haven't spent 3 years in India, then your practice is lacking somehow. So I started our meditation and sutra study with the Vimalakirti Sutra, specifically to get rid of that idea, because that's not something that Buddha taught. He did teach the fourfold Sangha, monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, but he was very clear that the practice of lay people is just as strong as the practice of the ordained. And I didn't read this portion of the sutra, but there's a good chunk of it where Vimalakirti is sort of giving as good as he gets with some of the monastics and instructing them in mistakes they've made about the Dharma, which isn't to say that's how we should approach ordained persons, but it is to say that lay people can also be deeply realized as well. It's important to know that. Allison also said, LOL, but where is Enzo? That's a good question. You can't see, but he's napping in his cat tree right now. I figured out if I feed him right before the live stream, he'll go to sleep and he won't attack the camera. So that's what happened to him. He got fed about a half hour before the live stream started, and now he's passed out. Funny story about Enzo, since we're on the topic. He doesn't like catnip. It makes him paranoid and he freaks out. But I realized earlier this week he really likes chamomile tea for some reason. I don't know. But I had some out. I use it right before I go to sleep. And he attacked it and ate some and then went to sleep. So now I have to keep my chamomile in a jar so he doesn't get to it. Alison Gerfen also said, are those 10 dharmas he taught the same as the 10 paramitas? Sounds similar. Yes, they are. And he speaks about the 10 paramitas quite a bit in the sutra, because that is such an important part of practice. And it, again, goes back to the idea of it's through our example and through our own personal practice, how we live our lives. That's how we teach the Dharma. That's how we save other sentient beings from suffering. So if we look at the 6 perfections, if we look at the 4 Brahma Viharas, that's exactly what they are. That's just us embodying the practice. So if you imagine we start with the 4 Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, that's the 4 Noble Truths is really the philosophy of Buddhism. The Eightfold Path is a little bit more of the practices, the practical application. And then after that, you have the 6 perfections and the 4 Brahma Viharas, which is more practical application. It's more, okay, you've learned how to practice like a Buddha. This is how you live like a Buddha. And that's what Vimalakirti was getting at tonight, was that our teaching isn't about this. Right? It's not about fancy miracle powers. It's about living like a Buddha so that other people can see that, and then he'll want to do the same. And yes, Allison, he did just wake up, speak of the devil. So he's behaving himself, though. So that's good. Any other comments or questions before we close tonight? Okay, wonderful. Well, like I said, next Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. is when we'll do this again. Next week, we'll be starting with the Lotus Sutra, which I think will be very exciting. And then if you want, you can also join me Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. And that's when we'll do our Dharma Sunday. Alison Gerfen said, thanks for sharing your auntie story. Well, thank you for listening. I always get a little bit nervous when I share stories like that, but I don't know. I'm a very warts and all type of Dharma teacher, so I'm glad you appreciate that and enjoy it. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Amitabha.